Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me is the star on top of my tree,
Sarah.
And today we're looking at a small card game called Holly Jolly. Sarah, tell us a little bit about this game.
All right, Holly Jolly is a Christmas-themed card drafting and set collection game. So now let's take a look at how the rules change for two.
So for two players, the game instructs you to look through the ornaments, find all the snowflakes, and remove them.
Yep, and that's the only change. And thankfully then, there is also no bot.
No Nanaman?
No Nanaman.
Goodbye, Nanaman.
Bye-bye. So let's take a look at some issues for the two-player game. One is replayability might be a bit low. The space is open enough that players can generally go for whatever they want and get set into that pattern of always going for that thing. So like if you like a particular ornament or you like a particular gift or those type of things, as long as the other player's not competing on the same thing, then you can kind of generally just do your own thing.
Yeah, if and everybody knows, like, oh, that's totally that person's style.
Yeah.
If you get stuck in that rut, yeah, I can see how this game can eventually be less dynamic for you because you're going to consistently, oh, that's the one that feels the best to me, so that's why I always go for that.
Right.
Even though there's plenty of room to, mix it up and try different strategies.
Right, but at the two-player count, being there's only two people, you can very easily go for the things that you want.
Yes.
The other thing is, on a personal level, they make you take out the snowflakes in the rules. I am very upset, and they know this. They know that I'm very upset. But the good news is the snowflakes and the toy soldiers are mechanically exactly the same. So if you are like me and prefer your snowflakes over toy soldiers, you can just take the set of toy soldiers out and play with the snowflakes and be happy and merry.
So yes, if you want to play with the Sarah Special Snowflake variant of the game, remove the soldiers, put in the snowflakes, and you haven't changed the game at all.
Right.
Same number of cards, same numbers on the cards, same values. It's just now snowflakes.
And that is just for the two-player. That you only take one set out for a two-player experience. If you're playing 3 or 4, you have all of them in, so you have access to the snowflakes without having to endanger those poor toy soldiers for, collecting dust in the box.
Yeah. Anything specific that you'd say the game does well for two players?
Well, kind of on the flip side of what we were talking with the replayability being low is, well, then it can be more strategic at a two-player game is, for me, I want to collect all the snowflakes. And generally speaking, I can, unless Will, for whatever reason, does take some. So it's, again, kind of a double-edged sword of you can be very strategic because you take a turn and then your opponent takes a turn. You can be pretty assured, well, he's not going to be able to take everything. So you can still get what you want on your turn. Whereas if you're playing with 3 or 4 people, you might as well just look away from the table until it's back to your turn because the whole thing's going to shift.
Yeah, and that's where two players really kicks into another gear is you got more of a tactical element to the game where it's just not there for more players because of how much you can affect the other person. And in fact, I affected Sarah very heavily in the second game, not so much by stealing the ornament she wanted, which is where you think would be the main way to mess with someone, but instead on the numbers that you use in order to essentially draft these ornaments. I kept all the numbers really low. She needed them high, but because they were low, she could never get to the higher numbers, and I was perfectly fine where it was because she would pick a middle number and like, oh, I could go high if I wanted. But no, let's go low again.
So I guess that's another good point. Even at a two-player game, there is a lot of player interaction in terms of, I guess it's more on the player denial aspect of with how you use the tinsel and light cards to get your cards. You can strategically place things over to screw over the other person. Now, granted, you can do that in a more player game. You'll only be affecting the person right after you, which is typical of how drafting games go. You most greatly affect the person after you, and you are most greatly affected by the person before you. So that is a typical aspect of it.
Yeah. Are we ready for accessibility?
Yes.
So, accessibility wise, there was really mainly one issue, and that was the stockings. So, in the game's instructions, you'll get these stockings and they're face down. Once you get them in front of you, you can look at them. So, there is kind of like a little bit of hidden information. We found that, well, you can't really do anything to the stocking once you get them. So in order to sidestep that accessibility issue, we just said keep them face down until you're ready to score.
For both players, or for
Yes.
all players if you're playing multiplayer, is yep, stockings are face down, and you just are, everyone is surprised at the end of the game because everything else in the game is open information.
Yes.
Now, granted, that makes that one, there's one card that gives you 2 times the stocking value of a card. And that can be a little more tricky to take when you're not looking at the stockings. But other than that, nothing really affects the stockings. So might as well keep it a true surprise for everybody until the end of the game.
Yeah, in fact, I got the card that she was talking about in the second game, and that's actually the card that won it for me.
Yeah, it
because
was.
I didn't know what my stockings were. And in fact, the first stocking I flipped up was a 0-point coal, which was just, it was like, man. And then I turned up the next one and it's a 5, and so that ornament was doubled to a 10-point, and that's a massive swing of points.
Yes, it is.
In the game.
But it was a risk he was taking in, and that's how it kind of shifted by keeping all the stockings secret. It shifted to, well, that's really a risk for him because he really doesn't know what he's got.
Yes.
So, but that adds a different element to the game as well.
Yeah.
But other than that, what it does right is the fact that everything else is open information and it's really easy to read. They do a really good job with the contrast. I mean, the red numbers on a white background is very easy, and they are that way on all the cards. So you don't have to worry about it switching on like, oh, this card they did red on green or something like that, which can be very difficult to read. It's red on white on all of the icons. So it's really accessible in terms of that and the open information.
Okay. So as far as a 2-player game goes, would you recommend this?
I still do. It's a holiday card game. You're not going to play it every single day of the year, generally speaking. You might break it out in July for that Christmas in July, but mostly you're going to be playing it a few times over the holidays. And I think it's still a really good, engaging 2-player game. Again, that tactical going back and forth with trying to get what you want overplays the low replayability and the open space. So I definitely say yes.
Yeah, when it comes to the ruts that you can find yourself in with a 2-player game, by the time you establish them, you're probably moving on to something else because the season has changed. This is definitely a game you pull out for those holiday seasonal sections. That's not to say it's a bad game.
Oh, no.
It's a fun game. It's just, like what Sarah said, people are people and they have particular ways and habits they like to think. It's very easy to get yourself in, and that can actually ruin the experience for you if you let that happen. So maybe this is a game that can teach you to maybe branch out.
That's true. I mean,
Pun intended. 'Cause
pun
it's a
branch.
tree.
Oh, got it.
Yes,
Tree.
that's
Yes,
funny.
branch out.
The other accessibility thing I do want to bring up is that it's designed by Matt and Ben. And they have a habit of doing mathy games. This is probably the most accessible one, but it is numbers, and you will have to do some adding and subtracting.
That's true.
So you will have to look at 1 to 3 numbers that you're adding up in order to draft a particular card or figure out which gift you're getting based on whatever your numbers are. And that is a little bit more compounded if you get some of the promos with it, like the candy canes add an extra layer onto that. So if math can scare you, this shouldn't, but
I still had trouble adding 5 and 2. So it was late at night, and I don't drink, but it was late at night. My brain just kind of goes sideways, and I was like, Will, what is 5 and 2? And he's like, 7. I'm like, okay, good. I can do that.
This might be a game you need to play with your shoes off so you have the toes available for the counting.
Or keep an abacus nearby.
Yeah, numbers only go from 0 to 5 when it comes to the adding.
For individual cards.
For individual cards. So it's not like big numbers.
No, it's not.
And
but
there's no multiplying.
It's still something to watch out for anyone with some challenges with math.
Math aversion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is an accessibility thing to consider. So other than that, this game is very accessible and would be recommended. You might just want to try the stocking variant where it's secret for everybody. And that would make it really accessible and an even playing field.
Well, that will do it for us here at Rolling with Two. And if you want to get a hold of us, check out any of our social medias at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be rolling with two?